7 PM, October 12th, 2017. Calling the Town Manager Acquisition Committee to order. First item on our agenda is to review and approve the October 5th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept as written. I shall second that motion.
We have a motion to accept the minutes as written and seconded. Is there any other discussion from the committee?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carried. Item number 2 on our agenda is review the town manager act and proposed changes, which in our meeting packet is the second piece of information that Ms. Tata has pulled together for us. And I'd ask everybody to take a keen look at all of that and make sure that it reflects our changes.
I'm a little confused on line 47. That one's yellow. Is there a reason why you yellowed that one?
That was me editing what was sent to me, sent it back to Dan and said, this is the things I edited, so.
Oh, okay,
One
okay.
of those, yeah.
So 47L is the item related to.
No, yeah, I know that. I was
yeah.
just looking at one, it's yellow.
it's
and
yellow.
the rest of them, I'm going, well, okay, why, I'm, okay.
Yeah.
Ignore the yellow.
If you could just make that red like the rest.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to ask the committee in section 7, of course, we've omitted or deleted
Section
the
7.
original transition section.
Which one?
It's lines 178 through 182,
Yeah,
and that's lined out, and there's a new set of 4 lines that would replace that.
I'm trying to find section 7.
It is a
Oh.
place that we have, in lieu of not being in a transition to the first manager, it's the place where we put the language in
Board of
to
Selectmen shall
require the
appoint-
5-year review.
Board of
the
Selectmen shall
committee.
appoint a current, yep, the committee to establish a town manager every 5 years. Yeah, that, section 7, that makes sense. Yep, as opposed to putting it in at 209.
Yeah.
Yep, no.
I did put in parentheses, and it probably will get scraped out by lawyers when they
What's that?
take a legal review, but it's actually the act's title officially by the legislature. Because when it goes again, it's gonna have a new chapter number and
Right.
year when it goes. And if you look at the title of the legislation, it's gonna be the act, it's the
Establishment
act
of-
that established the office of the town manager. in the
Acts
town of Upton.
2008, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
We all refer to it very commonly as chapter 391 of the acts of 2008, but the actual legislative title,
It's Act establishing town manager, yep.
the establishing the office of the town manager in
Mhm.
the town of Upton. So I think that if the committee's comfortable with that, I think that that's gonna be something that the selectmen are gonna probably end up changing after the legal folks look at it and how they will go about
Well, that's their call,
whatever they do.
yeah.
Is that okay with the committee as
Fine.
written?
Yep.
That was one of the few things that,
Yep, right.
so that, again, that was pulled together just so we have that. That'll go in as another attachment to the report. If you guys, I'd look
Okay.
to, if there's any other questions, concerns, I think all the rest of them are pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I'd like to get a, once people are comfortable with everything they've seen and read, get a motion.
I make a motion to accept the town manager act with proposed changes.
Second.
I would, a motion,
What was it, to accept?
this final edited
Yeah.
format, just as a document to go in
Yeah.
and to be forwarded to the
I
select.
recommended, recommended changes, our recommended changes to the.
Yeah, proposed changes.
Yeah, proposed changes. that's better.
Into the act, essentially.
Yeah,
And the changes are the lined out in red across the lettering. Those are
Right.
out.
Yep,
Okay.
except for the one that line 47 has, Al has pointed out. That's gonna be in red and underlined too. That's the one where we made the change to essentially, instead of all elected officials, it is the manager shall not serve in the office of the selectman,
Yeah,
which is one of the 3 elected positions
Right.
for the board.
right. So that one's gonna change to red.
That's gonna change to red and underline.
Right. I'm
Any other further discussion?
good with that.
Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, all set.
I know.
We're on to item number 3 on our agenda, which is the committee draft report. This is the effort that myself, Debbie Amarelli, and Donna Marie Floyd had taken over with Steve's starting point from a month or so ago. And just scoured, gotten together 3 times and a couple email exchanges to pull together the content of our meetings and our discussions into a report that explains our work from start to finish. What isn't on here that I'd ask the committee to consider would be allow myself and the subcommittee work with Deb Tata to put a final cover sheet, a title, table of contents, and header, footer formatting, as well as any other wording that are related to grammar and incomplete sentence, but no content changes.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Because in this report, just for the committee's purposes, we do have a bunch of recommendations that didn't result in any kind of language changes to the act, but clearly are things that I think are going to be important to the manager and to the Board of Selectmen to address from things that came about of this committee's work and efforts.
Well, as a committee member, I would like to see those changes,
Okay?
because it's part of the whole committee to decide on anything that comes from this committee. And it has to be sort of either voted on or agreed that we can vote on it from our home, a phone call or an email saying you approve or disapprove of whatever this is. If
I don't see a problem with that. I think that's fine. I think, if the committee would be okay with it procedurally, Deb's got most of the content. She's gonna have the rest of the report tonight. I don't know, can you work on it tomorrow to get it pulled together? I know the selectmen are probably looking for this to go in their meeting packet.
My guess is this is the piece that's most important to them.
Yep.
And my guess is also that this piece will be advantageous as a follow-up to them. They'll want to send this off to town council, and this can follow afterwards, because this kind of gives a historical data point. That's my guess. What do you think? I don't have a problem with you guys going through and getting the grammar
So just
correct.
take the draft off, grammar correct, and put a table of contents, headers and footers on it. And I think there's 1 or 2 typos, and there's 1 incomplete sentence still in there that I saw, so. That's all we would make changes to, and we could email that to the committee.
Okay.
I'd rather just get
Sounds
the
good.
entire thing out of there.
Sounds good.
So anybody have any questions about the report at this point in time? Like I said, I know there's been a lot of work done by
Yes, thank you, by the way.
Donna Marie and myself, is just scouring our meeting minutes, I looked back at a couple videos to make sure that we,
On page 2,
yep,
Dan, section 4.1, the second sentence.
yes,
It says, the second sentence says, the following sentence is confusing to me.
That was
that's
a
the
note,
one.
that was a note from me
Yeah.
to Dan that wasn't taken out.
Okay.
And the sentence is still confusing to me, but that's,
So that should come out, huh?
We'll just take that
yes,
sentence out
that
with
needs
that
to
whole
be
thing.
taken out.
So that's the sentence, Steve found it. So that sentence will come out,
A bit of a run-on, too,
yes.
because I'm always good at those, so.
With the recommendations that are in italicized outside of Deb Emerelli writing the section on the personnel board items, but the recommendations and the languages are basically matching what's in our minutes. Gone back and checked that and pasted those in basically right out of our minutes.
On page 7,
Yep.
towards the bottom, the recommendation says, it should be reiterated to the current town manager that under the personnel bylaws, employees can be immediately suspended with pay pending the outcome of the disciplinary process. I think that's the current town manager, I'm sure, is already familiar with our personnel bylaws, and I don't think the selectmen, need to reinforce any of that with him. It's his job to understand what those bylaws say, and it's the job of the Board of Selectmen to make sure that, that he does that. So, there are 2 places like this where there's a recommendation to somehow reiterate a bylaw to the current town manager. I think that's, his job is to understand what our bylaws say, and I don't think we need to make this include this in the recommendation. The rest of it's fine. But,
The second one is what? The second one is that recommending the committee that the Board of Selectmen assist fully support the town manager. Is that the second one?
no, the second one,
Is on page 7.
Page 8? Page 8, right at the top. Recommendation, the committee recommends that the Board of Selectmen assist fully the support of the town manager personnel in carrying out these evaluations in a timely
Yeah.
manner. That's the second one you would,
So I'll speak to those 2 items because I know that, and Debbie, if you can follow up, but those come out of our meeting minutes from things that we had passed over on the items related to human resources management, that we didn't want to make any specific changes to language.
right.
So there was a discussion about the recommendations, about how there's, a lack of cohesion, some
Well, like,
complexity issues and other things related to,
right, so why are we picking on this specific issue to point out and make the recommendation that the Board of Selectmen reiterate, I don't know what that means, with the current town manager, that this is what our bylaw is?
Well, the reason is because the town manager, as I wrote further up in the page, it's the absolute only section she recommended changing. So I think, based on that weight, and the fact that we have a new town manager who's working 60 hours a week and is completely overwhelmed, I don't think it's out of the realm of common sense to just say, hey, just remember, if anything comes up at short notice, something serious, suspend with pay. That's all. It's really not insulting him. I'd be surprised if he's mastered the personnel bylaws at this point.
I would too, so that's my point, is that there are lots of other personnel bylaws
Right.
that you could argue he needs to be familiar with. Why are we picking on this one?
Because it's a serious issue, or could be a serious issue. It's the severity of the possible severity of an issue that we just want to just remind him, that's all.
this also came back, Steve, if, I'm not sure if you've looked at it. I know it's been handed out in the meeting packets before, but this issue specifically was highlighted multiple times in the employee survey items that came back. So, of the employee survey, which had 17 or 18 replies, which is a little less than a third of the direct reports to the manager, 71% said no to the question, which was the effectiveness, and then this was a common theme that popped up. So it's covered pretty well in our meeting minutes. I think it's something that, it was definitely something that was talked about in our meetings and a discussion point. And so I'm kind of like with Debbie. I mean, I think if you want to maybe consider some shortening, if there's, you think there's too much in there or not?
Well,
I personally think that Debbie did a really nice job of
The very next sentence. was-
culling this out of our minutes.
The very next sentence, it says, "The committee requests the Board of Selectmen direct the Personnel Board to review this section of the act with respect to how it interconnects with the personnel bylaws." You could say it's covered under that sentence, where you're getting all the parties together and saying, all right, town manager, Board of Selectmen, and the Personnel Board, let's review. Basically, we want an entire review of the personnel bylaws, really. So you could say that it's covered under that last sentence. That certainly would be fair, because I want them to look at these bylaws. And
I agree that
Yeah.
that's what,
So,
I agree that that was part of the discussion.
Right.
The only thing I'm questioning is, it seems like we're picking out just one bylaw and making a point to say, you need to make sure that you understand this bylaw.
Yeah, there were several bylaw questions that we recommended that they review and get coordinated with the personnel bylaw. I mean, the Town Manager Act, there were several, weren't there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Debbie's basically, if you look at how that's written, I believe, from my going back and looking at it, she's really done a good job kind of pulling those things piece by piece out of the minutes and just putting in a simple thing. I think, to your point, Steve, you're right, we are actually going at specific sections, because I think those may be the sections from the testimony we got from the previous manager, the discussions from the committee, the things that came out of the employee feedback. These were sort of the like issues of like focus, like if you're gonna have pick on prioritizing the entire bylaw, which to your point, you'd want to look at the entire bylaw, but here's the things that were clearly that stood out from everything from the manager's testimony to the employee feedback.
And the same thing with, on the next page, it's the issue about making sure that the personnel reviews are done timely. I'm not sure who is responsible, and maybe Debbie, you can clarify that. So the DPW, who is responsible for doing performance reviews for the DPW employees?
to do them would be the DPW director,
Right.
but the town manager is responsible for making sure the DPW director does the performance reviews.
Okay. So the issue really is with, the timeliness of them is with the people, the employees who are charged with doing them.
They certainly hold the major responsibility, but the town manager and the Board of Selectmen, frankly, need to use their influence and their powers to make sure these are done. It's really that simple. And they're not in all cases. But yes, the supervisor is obviously, that's the person on the front
That's the
line
person,
doing it.
right.
This is kind of like a bitch slap to the town manager.
Yeah.
This was something I think that was brought up both by the selectmen.
Yeah.
It's been brought up by all sides that that the community has not gotten to the point with the manager implementing that fully. And I can give an example that I know that not everybody in the fire department, for example, who's going to be responsible for doing a review has been trained. Some people have, some people have not. I think there's been an attempt to do it, and I think that nobody's against getting them done. I just think the whole effort to make it happen
Yeah, it's not easy.
is,
There's no doubt it's not easy.
has been challenging. Again, an area of focus that I know as a committee member that I would hope that is a constructive, positive recommendation. I wouldn't take that as necessarily negative.
Well, I think the recommendation needs to be more towards the supervisors, that part of their job description needs to include getting the performance reviews done in a timely manner.
Well,
I mean,
we're reviewing the town manager's job,
Right.
not the DPW director's job. So it really, that doesn't,
The challenge here
I
is,
understand that's part of it,
The
but,
recommendation here, this is not a recommendation to change the act. This is a recommendation that this committee is making to this Board of Selectmen. And
Right.
we can recommend lots of things that
Right.
are outside the purview of the act.
sure.
right?
Yeah,
So
we
one of the
did,
things,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm suggesting here is in this recommendation, instead of making sure, instead of pointing out that the town manager has some responsibility here, which is clear, that the supervisors also have responsibility to get these performance reviews done. And how do we encourage them to do their part?
Well, we can simply say the committee recommends that the supervisor, I mean, we can put supervisor in that list of people.
That's all I'm suggesting, because
We could certainly do
we're
that. I
leaving
mean,
them
that's-
out, and they are
Yep.
the person that
Probably
has to do the work.
We could kind of reword it and recommend that the town manager reaffirm with those responsible managers that the performance reviews have to be on time. Because when you say reaffirm, that means they already know it, just restate it one more time, reaffirm it.
Yeah.
That,
I think if you
that
look at
gets
the,
to the same point. It tells the town manager to remember to reaffirm with the supervisors to get their reviews done on time.
And what if the Board of Selectmen choose to ignore this?
They can
That's their
ignore
choice.
all the
No,
entire
I don't
thing.
mean this recommendation. I mean, if they choose to not require supervisors to complete performance reviews in a timely manner.
It's their town.
so.
They run it.
Right,
At
it's
the
in
end of
the
the
Whatever
day-
they
bylaws.
want.
I
And
mean,
it's our
They
job
bring
to
up a
not
really-
be happy with it.
Hold on,
I mean-
the point order quick.
That would be a violation of the bylaw, but
Right.
And it would be a violation of the Town Manager Act, which is law, because
Right.
it's saying the manager shall get these things done, so.
But the town manager reports to the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen directs the town manager that this is not a priority, that the supervisors have more important things to do,
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think from a committee's perspective, it was
There's nothing we
again,
can do past
another
this.
big discussion
There's nothing
point.
we can do.
I think at the end of the day, all these recommendations are gonna prioritize these things, and wherever they put them in their order of priority is their preference or their
Okay,
likes as elected
so
leaders.
the only suggestion then would be to just add in that last sentence.
Right.
Supervisors somehow.
Mhm.
That
In the first and second sentence, can you put,
Yeah.
put some language into
Yeah.
department supervisors?
department, whoever the
Yeah, department
employee is that's
supervisors.
responsible for doing.
the responsible supervisor.
Yeah.
'Cause it doesn't have to be the DPW director. It could
No,
be-
no.
It could be somebody that reports to the DPW
Correct.
director who's
Right,
responsible. So it has
right.
to be the responsible supervisor.
That'll prevent those folks, Steve, to your point, that'll prevent those folks from saying, it's the manager's job. No, it's everybody's job to get this done. Any other questions? Thank
So
you
do we
for
resolve, would you
the
resolve
conversation.
would you resolve the one on, the committee recommends the effort be taken by the Board of Selectmen to develop written oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
We did talk about that.
Because I think Debbie's covered those recommendations, which none turned into language changes.
Right.
There's a lot to be done.
Well, there were policy issues that really don't, yeah, right.
There's a lot to be done with the bylaws, the personnel bylaws, which we can change easily
And the,
to get it to match up with the act better. That's
Right.
really the driver between this section. I think she's done a great job in pulling this together, and she,
policies and procedures, yeah.
On page 11, the recommendation about communication,
Mhm.
which I think is, I'm just a little confused about the sentence that says, citizen access to elected leaders, specifically the Board of Selectmen, and the need for direct and individual two-way communication with employees and the public was identified as a concern. So the issue there is, I think, what kind of communication can occur that is not in violation of the open meeting law?
But I mean, that's a valid question.
So citizens have access to the Board of Selectmen through attending Board of Selectmen meetings, through email, and it's been stated several times by current selectmen and past selectmen, you can't call a selectman's home phone and complain, you can't, that is not allowed. So I'm just concerned that we're making a recommendation here that might, that clearly can't be implemented because it violates the open meeting law.
Actually, it's a valid point, because they aren't selectmen until they meet as selectmen, until they meet. Any other time, they're selectmen in name, but not in authority.
So wasn't it in regards to email, being able to email them?
Yeah, all their email correspondence is direct. There's no way to directly email an individual.
Well, that's no different than calling them directly.
Mhm.
You're allowed to email to the Upton Board of Selectmen email address, whatever that is. And if that and that should go to all three of them, as well as the town manager.
Which, yeah, Bob said they just set that up, the
Right.
last one, and now it does, and it gets
Right.
CC'd to the town manager.
Right.
I think the point is, you're not going through the executive assistant or through the town manager, you can get to the selectmen.
Right, but you
If
can't get to an individual selectman.
Right,
is
it
the
goes, it's
point.
CC'd to all of them.
Right.
Yeah, they set that up.
So you
So
can't.
I think the individual two-way meant not individual selectmen, but
The board.
the board. Maybe it should
Board
say
as
the
I think
board.
it should be very clear about the
Right.
board.
Right.
A executive assistant or something like that, I think.
Want to take and remove the word
Yep.
individual, Steve? I think you're right.
Yeah, I
That's a
think
good
you,
point.
yeah.
Just say, and take out direct
Direct,
two-way
two-way
communication.
communication.
If we
yeah.
remove the individual, I think we
Okay.
addressed that
That'll
concern.
work.
That's very,
And I'm not sure, it says individual two-way communication with employees. Is that meant to say that the Board of Selectmen need a way to communicate with employees other than the means they currently have?
They
So I
do.
thought
It's the
I
other
thought
way,
the issue
employees
was
yeah.
To be able to contact.
Right, I think it was.
communication with
the other
the
way.
public, at large, not with employees.
I think the issue is the employees having access to the Board of Selectmen, not the other way around, I think.
Yeah, but you can't have any citizen contact one selectman.
Right.
You cannot have any, well, you can, if somebody wants to talk to the selectman and they work with the town, you can do that, but officially, no.
Right.
Nothing can be done. You have to go to the whole board in order to get anything done. That's the way it works.
So maybe it should say employee and citizen access to elected, should we say?
I think to answer that question, Steve, stop at board and take as a group as well as individually off again. Get the individually off, that whole end of that sentence.
It poses an interesting dilemma, because when you say employees having access to the Board of Selectmen, it implies that if I don't like what my boss is doing, I'm gonna go to the Board of Selectmen, so
No,
it
we
screws
don't
up the,
want to do
yeah, that's not a good thing. That's a chain of command issue that.
Right.
Yeah, no,
military
absolutely.
churches-
So
yeah,
why
they-
don't we, if we were to strike the word citizen and say access to elected leaders, specifically the Board of Selectmen,
Yep.
and the need for communication with the public was identified as a concern. So if any resident of Upton has access to the Board of Selectmen, so does any employee. It's the same mechanism, whatever that mechanism is. I
Right.
don't think we need to differentiate between employees and the public.
Correct.
There's one way to
Yeah.
communicate with the selectmen, regardless of whether
So
you're an
to that
employee or
point,
not.
Steve, you're gonna start, that sentence will start now and say, access to elected leaders, specifically the Board of Selectmen, the need for direct communication
As a board,
With the public.
with the public
Was identified.
was identified as a concern.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that
Thank
makes
you.
it a
yes,
lot.
Yep,
yeah,
I think it is very important.
that works.
Okay, that change is made. I think from there-
The only other comment I have is just on the attachments. There's a lot of them, and
I think this is it.
That's the
Yeah.
attachment.
those are the attachments. So unless we're willing to go through them, I'm not comfortable voting on something that I haven't seen.
So this is, everything in this attachment, and Deb's been working with me in the last week, is something that has been given to us in a meeting from some point in time. So this is just collecting everything that we've touched and included in our work. I think to this point, this is avoiding what a lot of administrative time was spent early in the committee grabbing the town manager assessment report and all the backup that goes with it.
Steve, I kind of look at it like if we included a dictionary in the attachments, it's not necessary for us to read every word in the dictionary.
Right.
It's reference material that one of us or all of us has looked at, and from a historical standpoint, if anybody ever, in 5 years, when they go back to look at it, it's advantageous to have all the documentation that was a part of our process, whether we read it or not. It's there, so anybody can go back and doesn't have to recreate the information, it would seem to me.
But we do have to understand that anything in there, whether we agreed with it or not, is there.
Right, well, we didn't vote on accepting any of that stuff.
Right.
It's just
Attachments, right.
part of the reference material that we use to look at it. So we didn't vote on it.
No matter who found it.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
like you said, I could take the dictionary and bring it over and,
Put it on there, and then, but this is material that we've had on our table to look at. Whether we read it or didn't read it, it's material
or
that...
accepted it.
Or accepted it, it's material that was there as
Well,
reference
then,
material.
maybe
just touched.
in the motion that we make on this report, we need to add some kind of a caveat that the attachments are purely reference material
There you go.
that we didn't.
That was used
that
by
was
a
used
member.
by the committee, but wasn't necessarily
Right,
agreed
accepted, it wasn't...
to by the committee.
It wasn't agreed to or accepted, it was reference material that was referred to. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm gonna put a sentence together, Steve, and if you don't have a problem
Okay.
with it, take a look at
Yeah.
it.
I think you make a valid point, but...
I'm not sure, I guess I don't understand what your issue is with agreed to, what's the underlying issue? I'm not understanding.
I have a problem voting to approve something that I haven't seen. Now, I mean, all these things, I may have seen them once before,
Yeah.
but we're voting to approve something tonight. And I like to see what I'm voting to approve tonight.
But I guess like, we've been working on this since April, and a lot of us have been, I have bags of material.
Right.
And so,
But what's in that stack of
is,
paper?
yeah, it's every meeting minute. I mean, Deb, we have been combing through these meeting minutes. I mean, we're so familiar with every minute of every meeting from having to put this thing together.
Right. All
So
I'm
I
saying
understand that you're not familiar with it, but
But this is not just minutes. If it was just minutes, it would be
It's fine.
simple.
no, I agree, but it, as reference material, it's all stuff that we've all had.
We're not-
We have it in our, it's not, no one's doctoring it up, it's everything we've had.
I don't have the
No.
personnel bylaws.
That was part of the first day we got, packet was, and it's online.
Right, but that's my point, is when we vote to approve something at a meeting like this, we're saying that we all agree with what's in that stack of paper.
Well, we don't
I can't-
agree with whatever the town of West Newbury is doing, no, I agree, our
Right,
vote
right.
should not be that.
My point.
But
See,
it's,
that's-
but these are reference materials, so if we add
Right.
a line about
We're
it,
agreeing
All
to
I'm
put the
saying.
reference,
Right.
we're agreeing to put the reference materials
That's
in the
good.
packet.
that's fine.
Right.
But you're not agreeing with putting the reference materials in the packet.
No, we're not saying that.
I'm fine with that. All I'm saying is,
Put a line
I don't
there.
necessarily agree with everything that's in
Right.
there.
Describe them as reference material.
So just add a
I
line,
put a sentence together if you can read it.
Right, okay.
it's just adding a
I don't
line.
have a problem putting them in there, I
Right.
just,
I think you're right, there's
We did not
an
vote
important
on the
sentence to put it
Agree
in.
with- So this says, "The attachments included in this section are reference materials only, not necessarily a representation of the committee's findings and recommendations."
Exactly.
That's perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah,
Love it.
Thank you.
that covers
All
it.
right, excellent.
Thank you, Steve, for keen eye to
Well, actually,
several of those items.
I think that pretty much
And
cleans it up,
everybody else?
except for the grammar that you want to change, if there's any grammar changes.
I'm letting Word do that for me.
Ah, well, be careful, Word will, trust me, Word may
There might be
screw
some
you.
Russian influence or something.
Be careful with Word, because that'll screw you up.
We've gone through it,
And it
so
does give you the
we've got some
grammatical changes.
grammatical issues.
Yeah, it does put the wrong word.
But, yeah,
They're the final grammar
so we
team.
need to,
So that's all that stuff you've done is grammar. So other than a table of contents, a title page, the couple changes we just went through, and one last pass at grammar, look for a motion so we can make this a deliverable and deliver on our promise to the selectmen.
I make a motion to approve the committee draft report with said changes.
I second that.
First, a motion forward and seconded to accept the report as amended per our discussions as a committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item number 4, opportunity for the public to address the committee, review correspondence from the public. And we don't have any new correspondence, and I think we're all set with the public.
Well, I'd say that we made our time frame.
Thank goodness.
Really?
Well, thanks to a lot of the members.
I think,
Thank you.
Yes,
I think we
yes.
did an excellent job.
It was Dan did, and the lion's share, I'm Deb, too. I mean,
Deb,
it was a
Yes,
lot of
Lot of
work,
work.
Deb, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's great.
I can
A
appreciate
lot of
that.
history and,
a lot of looking at meeting minutes.
I can appreciate that. Thank you for the effort, by the way.
Thank you so much. Like I said, glad we can get this done and deliver it to the
We got
selectmen.
it done.
Item number 5, I don't have any other reasonably anticipated change items that have been brought up.
And I don't think
So
we have to
I'm
have another
looking for
meeting.
number
I was
6.
gonna say, do we need another
Until
meeting?
I have one other thing. So I'm going to type an email and through Deb, forward these items to the selectmen so they can go on their agenda and we can deliver them.
Yeah,
as a committee.
we need to know, well, that's the last thing we need to know is when they're having their meeting, so we can attend the meeting as a committee.
Yep.
And we should deliver them a hard copy, not just an email.
I'll, Deb, if we can just do that one
Still be talking
coordination
at
with
9 o'clock
Debbie
if
and
we were
Donna Marie tomorrow.
And then print it out and hand them a copy.
Print out, hand a copy, email a copy to the entire committee, so we have, everybody has it.
Yep.
And
but we were scolded about that. We were scolded about that, so,
Yep,
and then you're not here, so it's not fair.
Yep.
Send it to, and hand deliver it to Candy for the selectmen?
we can give her an electronic and a paper copy.
Yeah, paper copy and a hard copy. I mean, paper copy and electronic. Because I see that the selectmen have iPads, so they'll probably get
And in that
it.
request, we'll ask them that we'll be awaiting their instruction,
Their destruction, did
their
you say?
instruction for our next steps.
Destruction.
If they decide they want to
Can
put
we-
us to work.
Can we approve the meeting minutes for this meeting via email?
Is that acceptable?
Actually, no.
We have to have
I
a
think-
meeting to approve the meeting.
I think what we can do is when we show up to the selectmen's meeting, I think we can post a
can.
meeting.
Oh, are we doing
to
that?
do
Is
it
that,
then.
is that the next step to?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
we just have to have
Yeah,
a
we do it
quorum
then.
that
A
shows
quorum
up.
at the selectmen's
In our,
meeting.
in our committee mission statement, it says that we are to actually show
There's
up.
one coming up.
So we just, 5 of us have to show up at the selectmen's meeting so we can vote on the minutes that we're gonna have for tonight.
When is the next selectmen's meeting? Do you know?
We don't know when they'll put it on their agenda.
Tuesday.
17th, okay.
You mentioned to me that it may be on this Tuesday coming up.
There you go.
I want to double check on that.
Well, we'll find out. We'll just make sure, just send a note out to everybody if we're on the agenda,
Yep.
and then we're good to go.
If not, we'd be on the next one, because then after that, if they're planning to put it on the
Oh, it has
warrant,
to be the next
if they're
agenda.
planning to put it on the warrant, it's gonna be,
It's gonna have to
it's
be
gonna,
there.
they've already been talked about on their side, and we.
It has to be the next meeting, so-
Because the warrant will close, what, 14 days before special town
We
meeting?
need, so we need to show up at the next meeting.
So, Dan, will you let us know then?
Yes.
Which meeting that is?
I'll talk to Deb, and Deb will talk to.
Tuesday, when's their next meeting? It should, is it next
Coming
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
17th at 6.
So they meet every other
6
week.
o'clock. All the meetings are at 6, so.
Then their meeting starts at 6.
We just don't know if we're on the agenda, though.
My guess is we will be.
We'll know by,
Soon.
we'll know by noon tomorrow.
Right.
Oh,
'cause the-
okay.
They need 48
Okay.
hours.
It goes up by noon tomorrow.
You can bring the six back.
Tuesday,
Possibly Tuesday.
17th.
Need more than 6
And
packs.
it's-
Bring a case, bring a case.
You deserve a keg.
They meet
Probably.
here.
Yeah, they need you.
Believe me.
Okay, so if everybody could put that in their calendar, that would be great.
Well,
And like
yeah.
I said, to Al's point, we need to have a quorum show up to that,
Yeah.
to address that last set of items. Other than that, last item on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion.
Man, that's,
You
Motion
guys
to
are-
adjourn
we
the
set a
meeting.
record here tonight. This is a record.
Second that motion.
We have the motion put forward and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks.
I almost said.